Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, it's your host, Sean. We're back here bellying up to the bar on the Above the Bar podcast on, what day is today? It is Wednesday, August 6th. Look at that. I even got it right on the first time and couldn't find my calendar. So there is a first for everything, folks. So we're bellied up to the bar today. We are talking about one of my favorite topics. And if you know me, you know how much I love this topic. There is no more interesting of a topic in the world to me. And for most of you, you're probably going to say, why is this so interesting to him? Because guess what? If you didn't know it, folks, the highest paying job in the world, bar none, no job outdoes this, is sales. And we're talking to a man that I consider as a mentor who helped me out in many situations, joining us all the way from Pennsylvania. It's just a special kind of place. But joining us again, he's been on the show before. Make sure everybody gives a big round of applause for Mr. Patrick M. Donohue.
Hello, Mr. Murphy.
What's up, brother?
Oh man, doing terrific, buddy. Thanks for having me.
You are always welcome on the show anytime you want. But again, folks, before we get into it, we're going to be talking about uh, how does salesmanship equal leadership? What is that process? How does that process work together? And I know many of you are probably thinking to yourself, well, one has nothing to do with the other. And that's okay that you feel that way because that just says you've never been in sales and you don't understand how that works. So before we get into what Patrick's got going on, I've got a couple things we need to take care of. As always, a little house cleaning. Over my right shoulder, that's the big board for sticker and a cause. If you've got something you believe in, something you're supporting, something you want other people to know about, and you've got a sticker involved in it, well, you can reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok. It's all the Above the Bar podcast. Our website is theabovethebarpodcast.com, and our email is theabovethebarpodcast@gmail.com. Let me know what you got going on. You can shoot us over an email. I'll tell you where to send that sticker to, and we will read all about you live here on the air. Let everybody know what you've got going on. So again, folks, that's Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, anywhere you can think of. We're on there, and you can send us out a message, and we'll let everybody know what you got going on. Now, we also got to talk about the people that pay the bills around here, and that's Budget Blinds. And that's Budget Blinds of East Greenbush and Budget Blinds of Hudson, Cooksaki, and Schoharie, North America's largest custom retail window treatment company. They handle everything from blinds, shades, shutters, tint, motorization, you name it. They even got window treatment, folks, that you can just say, okay, whatever your device you got in your home, raise, lower, you can set them timers on them, you name it, they've got it. Everything, and it's all custom. It's all in your home. You get to see the products in your home. You get to visualize the products in your home. No going to a store and trying to guess, does this match my paint? Does this match my floor? None of those things. So if you're in the capital region, especially for the month of August, gosh, I forgot what month we were in already. For the month of August, they are offering 20% off of all products. That's right, folks, 20%. That's an extra couple of coins you get to keep in your pocket. And as everyone knows around here, you tell them that you're there to belly up to the bar, they're giving you an extra 5% off your entire order. So that's Budget Blinds of East Greenbush and Budget Blinds of Hudson, Cooksaki, North America's largest custom retail window treatment company. All right, Patrick, all that stuff is done. All the house cleaning is over with. How are things in Pennsylvania right now?
Things are terrific. And I can't thank you enough for having me. This is my third time being with
Is
you.
it the
And
third? Wow.
yeah, and each time I just feel so much gratitude for your kindness, inviting me to talk to your folks and you trusting me. You know, when we got to know each other and we went on this journey that Vinny introduced us,
Yeah.
he was a great advocate for both of us and put us together. I knew that you were going to make it work. And every time I talk to you, it seems like there's another expansion. So what I'm about to talk to today, I think, leads right back to where you are and what's happened to you. And I hope your audience can appreciate how much good fortune you've had because of the good person you are.
Well, I appreciate that, and I want to make sure I'm explaining it right. We're going to be talking about how salesmanship equals leadership. Am I explaining it right?
Yeah, absolutely. So if um if you think about leadership, I always say if serving is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you. It's a quote that I read a long time ago, and I think about all sales relationships as problem solving relationships. A customer has a problem, they call a salesperson, or a salesperson finds someone who has a problem, they figure it out, and they solve that person's problem. So they end up leading that person to a solution. Where sales isn't so good is when you're trying to sell somebody who doesn't need you, or you're convincing someone of something that they shouldn't do. That's not really salesmanship. That's bamboozling someone. But a true salesperson is very proud that they offer a solution and that they meet people where they are, and they lead them to the answer. And therefore the customer goes out and advocates on their behalf.
I want to start with the with that term we keep using, salesman and salesmanship. What are your feelings? And it really was something interesting to me that I recently was listening to because I listen to a lot of audiobooks now. Where I can't remember if it was Zig Ziglar or John Maxwell or somebody like that was like, one of the best compliments you can receive is that you're a great salesman if you're in that world. But we hear that, and sometimes I think it gets taken as a negative, like, "Oh, you're a hell of a salesman there." Like, where do you think we lost that? Because growing up for me, like, that to me was like, "Hey, if you can get into sales and you can do that, was the greatest thing that you could do," in my opinion. Where did we lose that at?
Yeah, I think people just in general, like it's not institutionalized in our learning as part of our curriculum, as in, what people consider an honorable job, doctor, lawyer. Like, what do you want your kid to be? Everyone says the same thing, president, doctor, lawyer. And then they decide that that may not be best for them, right? But what I came to learn once I started doing it was there's a lot of people who just don't communicate well, and they need somebody in the middle to help the communication get better. And it's because I'm not the smartest guy in the room, Sean. I can learn from anybody. So if someone tells me their problem, I have compassion. I know it's unique. I reiterate it, and then I try to come back with some solution. On the spot, am I like, hey, let me nail it down? I know what the answer is. No. I want to really go through a process and figure out what, if anything, can I recommend so we can get to a common ground and it can come to a solution. That's never talked about. It's never put in our education system. I see great servant leadership companies all the time do well. Chick-fil-A, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and they institutionalize sales as a servant leadership. Serve your
100%.
customers, give more value than you get, and you'll get their business.
It's absolutely, and it's so interesting that you bring that up. In If we think about those companies that are out there that are very servant leadership driven, using the Chick-fil-A model, let's be honest, folks. I enjoy a Chick-fil-A sandwich. It is not the best chicken sandwich I've ever had in my life.
No, no,
But it's a really good chicken sandwich that when I walk in, my experience in the store is even better.
right.
That's an interesting, it just came to mind to me though, is we recognize great servant leadership companies and we want to go to those companies, but yet at the same time, society is kind of looking for the middle of the road or low road leader is who is progressing above that high road leader, if that makes sense to everybody. Does that make sense the way I'm explaining that?
Yeah,
What do you think's happening there?
there's three cultures in any company. There's financial culture, there's a business development culture, or there's an operational culture. So I could look at the banks and say clearly they have a financial culture. I could look at certain companies like SAP or ADP and say clearly they have a sales culture because they want to solve problems with technology. And then I could look at UPS and say they have an operation culture. So the culture actually institutionalizes the leadership. And when you watch companies that have that servant leadership mindset, they usually have a business development or sales culture, and that evokes through to where their C-level people aspire to those positions, and that culture pervades. Where they don't, it doesn't. And only 20% of companies really focus on their business development culture as the primary and put their leadership in place. And today, what I really want to talk about is for small business owners out there, what the difference is between selling traditionally and your mindset and what holds you up and what could you make you more successful. How do you 10x your results? So I would love to spend a little time on that if
Yeah,
it's okay.
I mean, well, I wanted to kind of, before you even get in it, give folks a little bit of background of like, because a lot of times people are like, you're not the person who's telling you how to raise your kids and never had a kid.
Oh,
You've got a sales background. Give everybody a little bit of an idea of what you've done as far as sales is concerned.
sure, I'd love to. So I started out, I was in the beverage industry. I worked for Gala Wines. That's where my sales training was. We had a sales culture. And I moved on to Bacardi. So I was above the bar for about 10 years, helping people figure out their bars, restaurants, and on premise, off premise businesses. So I was in business development, helping people grow either their stores or their restaurants. And doing it through marketing and promotion and beverages and finding ways to attract people and create the excitement around that. And then I switched to telecom. I was in telecom sales for a while. And then I switched to business development and national accounts for a company called Mako, which fixed old cars. And they had zero national account sales. And I took it from zero to today, where it's 350 million, represents about 50% of their total sales. But it was an initiative that I was brought in to do because I had that experience. I was a rainmaker. I knew that there was people who had problems that we could solve on a national basis because we had the biggest footprint in the country to solve the problem.
So as you can see, as before Patrick gets into explaining to us how this works, especially for those of us who own small businesses, he actually has the background. He's been there, done that. It's just not a thing he's running his face about saying like, you could do this, don't worry about it. So tell everybody a little bit about this process you've developed here.
Yeah, so for 13 years now, I've been a consultant helping people like yourself find businesses. I can't remember how many years is it now? 6 years you've been in this? 5 years?
No, believe it or not, it's only been 2 years in April.
How did
two
your
years.
business get this big?
You know what? It's all those conversations you and I have had, and being kind of a thick-headed person who's like, "I don't know what you mean when you say I can't, so I guess I gotta go do that now." That's part of that Marine mentality, like, "Oh, I can't? Watch what I'm about to do."
So we were introduced by a mutual friend, Vinny Roman, who's a friend of yours from the military, a friend of mine
Absolutely.
from business and coaching and mentoring. And he put us together and said, here's a great guy who's really wants to take his sales ability and use it to run his own business. And so when we talked, I said, well, you should do window covering. She said, of course, that's what I thought all along. And then and then you went to town with a window covering business. No, I mean, we met. It's one of my favorite businesses. There's 1,000 franchisees. I've never
Yeah.
had anyone fail at it. The average sale for a franchise is very healthy, and it usually takes beyond people what they were doing before. But more importantly, it gives you this great life, right? It gives you the ability to be home for dinner or available for your kids or et cetera. So our conversation was more about how do we create the life you want, Sean, long term. Obviously, you want to have some economic goals, but what about the purpose goals, and what about time goals? How do we create all that? And that's part of that sales process that I've done for 13 years. Actually, my anniversary of when I left Mako will be Friday.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
13 years ago that I separated myself. And what happened was when I left, people were pretty surprised because they thought I was the brand and the brand was me because I was always out visiting with people and talking about it and out in public and doing all I was the front facing guy in the company. And at that point, I got a lot of phone calls over the month that I was gone, from early August till about Labor Day. And each person said, what can I do for you? You've done so much for
Oh,
me.
wow.
I want to do something for you. And I said, well, listen, you've said the nicest things in the world. If you could just go advocate for me, if you could put what you said on LinkedIn and tell someone else, that would be enough. And they really felt like they should do more. I said, no, no, that is all I need. Your advocacy and your advertisement is so much more powerful than me telling people, hey, I can do the job. And in the next 60 days, after 24 people wrote me a recommendation, I had three C-level job offers, which I turned
Wow.
all down. to do this, to go on my own, because it really fit what I wanted to do with my life, which was to help small business owners break out of corporate America and use their vast skills where they would be appreciated most by their friends and family. And then once they built that business, they can create, a lot of energy with their advocacy. So a lot of people like yourself always have had customers who want to buy from you and teammates who want to die for you. When you're in the military, right? If you don't have teammates who want to die for you,
Yeah,
it
it's
ain't
all
going
bad.
too far, right? And so you've taken that and put it in your life. And so that's what I try to teach people all the time is that this is where there's no limits. You were just telling me about your recent goal to expand more. And there
Yep.
really is, it could be as big as you want it to be. And the way it comes most effectively is through advocacy and the orbit of those. I should tell them the truth. Cold calling is dreadful. And nobody wants you knocking on their door randomly to sell them stuff. So don't worry about it. Don't do it. Let's find other ways to do it. There's a 3 to 5% chance that someone you meet and knocking on their door says yes. However, if Sean has a friend who hates their job and wants to buy a business, there's a 70% chance I can help them. And that's how you 10x your results, right? You think about every lead you get really comfortable with the uncomfortable ask of asking your advocates to do what they can do to put you in their orbit so you can help more people get their problem solved.
I gotta ask a sidebar question then, real quick. What is wrong with me that I love the cold call? I freaking love it, dude. There is nothing. Listen, folks, if you've never been in sales and you don't know what a cold call is, that's physically like when you're sitting down to dinner and somebody calls you up and says, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you for a moment." That's a cold call. You weren't planning on the call. No one introduced you. It's there. To me, there is nothing more of a drug than when you can cold call somebody who had no interest in talking to you and you can get them to have a conversation and then either get into a sales process or close a sales. That dude, that's a drug. That is such a
Yeah.
drug to me.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's either scary to some people or exciting to others. For you, it's exciting. And it
Oh,
was
it's death.
in
It's scared. I'm scared. No, Patrick, I'm scared absolutely to death every call.
What's the
I
difference though? What's the difference between excited and scared? It's the same feeling. You get jittery, you get energy,
yeah,
your hands get sweaty, your throat gets dry.
I
It's the same
love it.
feeling. It's there, it's just
100%.
it's just a synonym for the same thing.
Oh, I
And what
love
people
it.
do is they get really fearful because they think, well, the person's rejecting me. And, whether it was you on your own or the military or the combination of those two things is fear is our wall, right? If we break fear down into its element, it's really just what we're doing to ourselves. So get that out of
Yeah,
the way because you're a good person and you know that people need window coverings, right?
that's
And,
it.
and if you can help them out and provide more value, they're better off for knowing it.
So you're asked to do this presentation, and you're like, I've got a process. I can have this conversation. For you, as you're putting this together, what was the core elements that you were like, okay, and real quick, folks, if you're just joining us, we've got Patrick Donohue on. We're talking about sales. How does salesmanship equal leadership? How do the two of them work together? If you want to know what Patrick's got going on, you can go to Patrick M. Donohue, and that's with an Donohue. You can go to his website. You can see what he's got going on. But back to this, and if you got questions, drop them into the chat, whichever place you're watching it, and I'll get those questions and we can ask Patrick. But so, what was it for you, Patrick, when you were putting this together? What were the core elements that you were like, "This is this is where I need to start this conversation"?
Yeah, I know all small businesses, if they had endless customers, they'd have endless cash. So they all want more leads, and from leads, they want to be most effective with those leads. And sales is usually the most intimidating part of it. Most people have a great product or great service. They don't know how to tell their story. And telling your story is about building trust. I start every conversation off that I have telling people I'm a two-time cancer survivor. I wake up every day with a brighter light than most people because I'm really excited to be awake and alive. And then I want
Fair.
to share that light with you to help you grow. So I say a lot of things in 11 seconds, and it's got to be 11 seconds because people make a judgment whether they want you in their life or not in 11 seconds. So mine is about, here's my truth, which I was very uncomfortable. I used to be very uncomfortable telling people that. So I had to be transparent about my weakness. But the strength of it is I'm very excited to share that bright light. And it's really to help someone else grow. And I know that that's my calling. I know that that's my purpose. So that allows me a certain amount of trust. So what I was trying to teach people is by building trust in the beginning of what you're doing with somebody, by having a good elevator speech, as we say, 11 seconds, powerful, serving other people, be a servant leader. If you can say all that in 11 seconds, you can attract them into your range. And then you need to really figure out what's going on in them, meet them where they are, find out how things are going for them. So it started with that, and then it moved towards how do you build trust? And so I started working out some things that I've done as workshops on trust building with big groups. I did it with them. They all bought in. They were all excited. I talked about fear and anxiety and how you turn it into excitement. I talked about the cycle of change, people not being informed, then they're informed optimistically, then they're informed pessimistically, then you got to get them informed optimistically, and then you got to close them. Teaching them really what sales comes down to is trust building, learning
Yes.
someone's problem, and it's about them, not you. And you're always going to do more for your customer than they're going to pay you for or pay you back with. And that's okay, because the lingering effect is you don't want a paycheck. You want an advocate. You want someone who'll go on Facebook or call their friends and say, "Man, Sean was unbelievable. Yeah, he got me blinds and he got me a fair price and he looks beautiful and the room looks great. But there was one little thing that I was concerned about, and he was so aware that of my concern that he ran over and he fixed the problem. And oh my God, now they got a narrative, right? And they love to beat the drum that the narrative is you're a good human and other people should trust you. And that makes your life that much easier. And that's why your close rates go from, you know, 3% for cold calling, 7% for shows, 20% from advertising, to 70% from referral. But that's not it, Sean. Besides getting 70% of the customers to buy from you, they're 4 times more likely to refer you. They're more likely to spend more lifetime value money with you, meaning spend more money than the average customer. They're more likely to write a recommendation. It's a lower cost of acquisition. So, all the other things that are so important that we measure in finance and a business trickle down from your effectiveness in your sales process from tapping into your advocates and getting into their orbit.
A- Listen, every bit of that is 1,000% true. And I think you said the key thing there is being a good human. And it's funny you mentioned that advocacy. Like, how do you get, and I'll give an example. I recently closed a very large deal. Um, and the gentleman physically said to me, he goes, I've never gone onto a Facebook group before, and it was a community group, and typed in like, "Hey, I'm trying to get my windows taken care of. Who should I contact?"
Right?
And there was 5 replies, and the first 4 were, "Call Sean at Budget Blinds. Here's his number. Budget
Yeah.
Blinds." And I'm looking, I'm going, "Oh, I know that person. I know that." He showed it to me. I was like, "I know all these people." He goes, "I called you because everyone in this community said to contact you." How do you real I mean, I can put no value personally on that beyond like, "Hey, I made a sale," but personal pride in like, "Hey, I really took care of these people. They meant
Yeah.
enough that they would type my name in." But how do you get people, because I think a lot of salespeople, especially if you're there's a lot of different types of us, but if you're just getting into a sales cycle or you're trying to learn sales, you're in that fear zone that like, I gotta
Yeah.
close, I gotta close, I gotta close, I gotta close. How do you get them to understand? Take an extra 5 to 10 minutes and do what Patrick just said and build rapport and trust with the customer. You're saying trust, I say rapport. It means the exact same thing in my world. But how do you get them to understand that like that 10-minute conversation? There's a real famous one using form, and every organization has a different version of it. But form is family, occupation, recreation, and when I was in the Marine Corps, it was military. I've heard, gosh, I heard it. Somebody else said it was meaningful things or whatever. But I mean, it's literally 4 questions. I could tell Pat, say, Patrick, so, "Hey, so how many kids do you have? What do you do for a living? What are some of the things you like to do for fun? And then add the M in. How do you get people to understand how important that really is in the long scope? Because it's a long game thing.
Yeah. I think the people who are smartest avoid sale the longest. So I'm going to talk in their language, right? I'm
Please.
going to talk in objective results. So if you think about advertising today, what is the odds that you see an ad and you think, that's something I want to buy? What do you think the
Slim to
number of people?
oh god, last time I saw it, and tell me if you've got the same number. Last thing I saw was it takes 33 impressions or contacts before somebody does anything. 33
Yeah.
was the last number I heard.
So
Would you hear?
you have a 17% chance of believing the ad. If someone refers you, if you go online and they see 4 referrals, there's a 92% chance
Wow.
that they trust you. So just look at the objective results. You speaking about yourself is advertising. Someone else speaking about you is advocacy. And the comparison is 17 versus 92. What pool do you want to play in? So what people make the mistake is they think because someone didn't buy from them, they rejected them. You don't know what that is. It could be their budget, it could be their timing, it could be they're tough at making decisions, they're playing the long game and they're just whatever it is. You can't be concerned about that. You need to have a timely process so that you can, close your deals. But at the same time, every one of them can be an
Mhm.
advocate of you. So here's my numbers. I talk to 150 people a year who call me and say, I'd love to buy a business. I heard you help people buy businesses. And I say, I do. And there's probably 15 of those people that end up buying a business. So that's 10%. My goal is to get 50 of them to be my advocate, to put enough value into my relationship that even though they're not buying a business, I want a third of them to be like, wow, this guy really heard me out. He was there for me when I needed him and he wanted to solve my problem. I got a job. I did this. I didn't have enough money. Whatever they decided they didn't want to buy a business, that's fine. But I would love it if they all felt that I added something to their life. That's the bright light to help you grow, right? That's that part of the elevator speech that's so important. If they walk away with that and they really believe it and they trust that, because I'm not saying to them, well, you should buy a business. I say to them, do you want to be a poet? Do you want to be a preacher? You want a job? You want a business? I'll help you with any of that because you're going through a transition in your life. That's why you called me. And buying a business is only one option, and not everyone's going to do that. But everybody can help each other out. So I'm going to help you, and then what I'd ask at some point is if I've added value, keep me in mind. So I have my elevator speech up front, hours of trust building and asking questions to your point, all those things so I can build rapport and relationships so that I can create some advocacy. And then I have an ask. And my ask is even shorter than my 11 seconds. I say, Sean, I got a weird question for you. And you say, what is it, Patrick?
What is it, Patrick?
And I say, do you know anyone who hates their job?
Why? You know what, Patrick? Most people I know hate their job.
Oh my gosh, really? Me too. If you know of anybody who hates their job, have them call me. So I have a very simple ask at the
It's a
end,
great ask.
right? And I'm not saying, go out and find me someone who wants to buy a business. But the people who are in pain, I can help. And so after all of that, and I make sure I would say, is there anything else I can do for you today, Sean? No, I'm good. Okay. Well, I have one weird question, right? So knowing your elevator and knowing your ask at the end is where advocacy comes from. And people really struggle with this. So I did the first workshop to explain to people, and now I'm being asked to come back and work on their elevator speech. Because when I ask people what they do, the average person takes 2 minutes to answer that question. And I
It's
say,
interesting. I was going to ask you about that.
you have 11 seconds, brother. Because I'm checking out, right? I've got a lot of friends. Oh, things going on. Da, da, da. What do you do? I provide window coverings for people, provide great value and great service. Love to talk to you, right? Whatever your elevator is. Bam. Now I know where you're at. I know how you can help me, and I want to learn more. Most people don't know how to do that.
You brought up an interesting thing about the elevator pitch. Have you ever had somebody like I get asked about my elevator pitch sometimes, and I realize I go to the podcast first before I go to the window treatments, depending upon the audience. Like if I was out on the streets right now and you said, "Hey Sean, go give this person your elevator pitch," I would say, "Hey, my name's Sean Murphy. I'm the host of the Above the Bar podcast. We talk about who people are, what they do, and what makes them great. Would you be interested in learning more?" Like done. but it's environmental. Have you ever run into something and somebody gives you an elevator? And this is why I love talking to Patrick, because I'm never going to stay on topic, because I enjoy talking to him. So, have you ever run into that where somebody's like, you expect them to give a pitch about something, and all of a sudden they explain something, you're like, why aren't we talking about that? Why aren't we focused on this?
Every time I ask somebody, give me your elevator speech. So I could give you a bunch of great ones that I got, but there's one that I really love. I just worked with a good friend of mine, Pete Keenan, and he's a financial advisor. He'd been with Vanguard his whole career, and then went out on his own. And he's explaining to me what he did, and he went on and on for a good couple minutes. He's a financial advisor, right? So I was like, Pete, you got to narrow that down to 11 seconds. Next time he got on the phone with me, I said, "Hey Pete, how you doing?" Now, I usually it takes a while for people to evolve into it. And I said, "How you doing?" He said, "Great. I'm Pete Keenan. I give people peace of mind."
Sounds good to me. Tell me
I'm
more.
in.
I want to
Tell
hear
me
it.
more. I mean, it was unbelievable. And I said, "That is one of the best, most concise things I've ever heard, and makes me want to talk to you."
Yeah,
By the
absolutely.
way, if I asked your wife what your elevator speech is, what would she say?
What? I don't know. She
And
might be
he
watching. She
said,
might come down.
Well, Pete Keenan said, "I haven't told her yet." I said, "Then it's not an elevator speech." My wife has heard me say, "I'm a two-time cancer survivor and I wake up every day with a bright light to help you grow," a million times.
I
My
love
kids
it.
could say it. Anyone could say it, right? So it's got to really be who you are. It's got to be true to you. And so now he does, and she knows it. And I had another young woman. She really shocked me. Right? She's in college and she's lights out, like run the entrepreneur center and a finance major. And now she's a business consultant with a big consulting company. But I said, "Tell me your elevator speech," and she rambled on for a couple minutes. And I said, "Well, you really want to make it more personal. And why would you want to work for somebody? You're trying to apply for a job." And so hers was, I come from a very small town and there's only two jobs in my town: working at the supermarket, cashing people out, or dancing on a stripper pole. I'm not going back. I'd rather work for you because that's not an option. And I was like, whoa.
That's a punch in the chest. That's a straight like you're nailing it at that. See, I love hearing these things. And look, folks, if you're joining us right now, we've got Patrick Donohue, and we're talking about how do we go from salesmanship and how does that equal leadership? What are these different elements? If you got a question for Patrick, drop it into the chat. Make sure you're giving this all a like, share, follow. And if you want to see what Patrick's got going on, it's Patrick M. Donohue, and that's Donohue. He's not doing talk shows, but he could be doing one. So make sure you're giving him checking out what he's got. So you're putting this element together, you're putting all these pieces together. Where do you find that people struggle the most to understand that being a good salesperson is being a good leader? Like, where do they struggle in that transition to understand one to the other?
Yeah, as soon as they leave the seminar, right? Because the rest of the world is not telling them that that's honorable or a good thing. It's salesy, like you said earlier,
Oh, I
or
hate that.
has some connotation of negativity.
They think we're
And
all car salesmen. They think of
yeah,
it's the sleazy car salesman. But I'm
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
And so they get rejected, and it's like anything, they fall into fear, and there's a million reasons they don't take action, and they don't practice it. Some of it is people, we're in a comfort crisis. People are too comfortable in our society and are staying comfortable. The people that do the best, Sean, are military, former military, right? Veterans, first generation Americans,
Hmm.
and former competitive athletes, because it's always uncomfortable in those three things, right? Giving up your country to come here to better yourself. This is a joke. Anything they have to do, there's nothing that scares them. Sales,
Yeah.
working hard, pah, dealing with employees who quit, pah, I'll find another one, right? They overcome everything. A veteran who comes home and then feels well received, gets some funding, gets some opportunity, and knows there's a process, there's a result, there's an end game, commander's intent, as you explained to me. Take that hill and get it done, get the job done. Nothing stands in the way. You plan, you execute, you debrief and reboot and do it again, right?
That's
And
it.
then athletes, man, they just deal with wins and losses. It's a 50-50. It's a coin cost. It's a coin toss. So how are you going to make a difference? You're going to make a difference by being the most resilient person in the room. So Most people don't have that equipment because they're living in the comfort. They think they're going to go slow. They think it's going to be a nice, easy, slow fix, and it's not. It's incredibly uncomfortable. Change doesn't happen with comfort. Change happens with pain. There's two things that drive us as humans: suffering and love. We will work very hard for love, and we work very hard to get away from suffering. And other than that, if we're in comfort, we just don't work that hard. So most people fall back in their comfort and keep doing what they did.
It's interesting you mentioned and again, there's so many things to unpack there. I will tell you, as a professional salesperson who I'm very confident in my skills, if I can get the product knowledge, I'll crush anyone in sales numbers because I do care about my clients. I care about who they are. I don't call them customers; they are clients. A customer is someone who walks into Walmart. A client is somebody who can become my friend. But it's funny you mentioned athletes. Those are the only people that I ever truly feel like can be competitive against me. Other service members, other Marines, we speak the same language. We can run. Athletes are a different animal when they get into the sales world because it is a numbers game, is a competitive game. They really are different. But the other side to that, and I'm curious, with athletes that you may have worked with, do you see, like, to me, swimmers, I think, are great salespeople because they are very individual. Like, each activity is goal oriented. Each event is a finish point. Each event is a ending point. And I think they're very impressive to watch. And I think in the sales world they do well. Have you ever had experience where you're like, this type, and listen, you ain't gonna call anybody out, but this type of athlete is a better sales than this type of athlete? Do you understand what I'm asking?
Well, they're different business types, people. So a swimmer, a runner, a wrestler, a tennis player, those solo athletes, solo performance are oftentimes better in a business like mine where they're a solo performer and they don't have to have a team. So as a consultant, I don't have a team. I do it all myself. So I'm responsible for all of that because they have that rigor and that self-reliance. They do really well by being able to perform at a high level and doing all the functions. Where someone who's a football, basketball player, a baseball player, they're a team person. They're used to being a leader on the field, and so they like to lead a team of people to do it. So I try to match the business to someone's skill sets, model, and say, where are you more comfortable? And a lot of times the solo single athletes, they had another option, right? A swimmer probably could have been on a team sport, but chose swimming because they liked it's all on me, right? Thumbs on chest. So maybe they want a business where it's more reliant on them.
That's interesting. So you're building this model, you're working with this team, and you're putting this process together. Um, what was some of the feedback you were getting as you started to present this to people, and you're saying, "Hey, this is what I've got for you. This is how you can get better." What were some of the feedback you were receiving?
Yeah, so I do this exercise. It's called the Johari Matrix exercise. So imagine there's four boxes. There's what you and I know about me. I wear a lot of hats. There's what you know about me that I don't know about me. So that's your observations or my aura or what I put off or how I'm perceived, good, bad, and different. There's what I know about me and you don't know. That's my history. That's my treasure chest. And then there's what neither one knows about me, which is, I might hit the lottery tonight, right? So there's four boxes, and what we focus on is what do you know about you that no one else knows that you usually are unwilling to share? Because that's how you build
Ooh.
trust. So I talk about how I don't like the name Pat Donahue because when I was younger, I went by Pat, and I was an irresponsible, guy that I didn't love. So I really started branding myself as Patrick to be like, be cognitive that you can be better every day, that you can continue to grow. So in that seminar, that's what I shared. And then I said to people, I'm going to pair you up, share one thing with somebody. And the room went a buzz. It was on fire. Everyone was talking, they're sharing stuff, and it got deep. And there's some heavy stuff, right? So then I bring it back to the room. I'm like, hey, let's share some stuff. And it's so interesting, Sean. So if I say to you, I don't like Pat and I like Patrick and live every day, and you started to then share that, you're not going to typically share the painful part of what I did. You're going to share the joy of where I'm going, and you're going to reflect on that. And when people hear someone else respond so quickly to that magic and protect them and then share it in an enlightened way, they start to realize, wow, I can trust them. And this is a new relationship. They were all blown away that they could build relationships so quickly when they trusted people a little bit more. That was the big takeaway of that exercise, which I love.
Can I throw something into that exercise? And I'm curious if you can do it next time. I'm curious what the results would be. Next time you do that exercise, and are you partnering people up like, hey,
Yeah. Yep. There's 30
a-
people in the room, 15 and 15. Yep.
ask them to share what their partner's thing was. Not you share what your thing was, but share what your partners
Yes, that's
like.
what they
So,
do.
so if
Yeah.
you and I were okay, so that's how they
Yeah.
did. So, like, if
That's
you and
how
I
they
were
do it.
partners,
Yeah. Yeah.
I share that. Hey, Patrick's not comfortable with being called Pat, so I would share that.
Yeah. But most of the time, people don't say the uncomfortable part, right? Instead,
I
they
was curious
say,
about that.
man, he's really trying to be a better person every day. They'll take that last part.
Oh,
And then you
really?
hear that and you're like, huh. Or "Oh, man, that's a lot of it is interpretation. It's not necessarily what you said, because some of it's deep, right? Like, hey, I was an orphan, and that's why I wanted to start my own business, because I was relying on myself. So someone might say, not say he's an orphan, they might say, man, he's got so much history that drives him harder than the average person, right? And that's what's always interesting, because the person kind of looks over, they're like, huh, oh, it's more of a reflection than a repeat of what they say.
That's interesting to me because I was really curious about that. And look, folks, again, we got Patrick Donohue on. If you're curious about him or you got questions about small business or maybe getting into sales, you have sales related questions, drop them into the chat here today. Let us know what you got going on. If you want to know what he's got happening, it's Patrick M. Donohue, Donohue.com. You can let us know what's going on. So
Can I just leave? I know we
please,
have three
please,
minutes
please, please.
left.
No, no,
So I
no. We
want to,
got more than 3 minutes. We got 18 minutes left. There's
oh,
three
okay.
minutes till the ad.
Okay. So I want to end up making sure people know how to make this actionable. How do I
Yes.
get advocates, and how do I get in their orbit? So I talk about elevator speech and asks. So making sure that you can say to someone, hey, I really loved working with you. And if you know anyone else who has windows, I would love to meet them. Right. And people, ha ha ha. I got plenty of people who have windows, Sean. I'll keep you in mind, whatever. Right. Or sending an email saying, hey, would you rate my team? Because I'm working on making sure that I can bonus them. And if it was good, better, best, they make X. But how much better were they than you expected? Because I'd love to give them some feedback on what they did that was exceptional. So now the customer's like, ooh, I'm bought into this person's performance review, and I can get them a little bump in bonus, right?
Yeah.
Now, what are they doing? They're being part of your business. They're rowing the boat with you. They're bought in, and something they'll talk about, right? Or, hey, here's a review, blah blah blah. You get the review back, and you say, could you click this button and just do a short video for me? And so all these things, customer service indexing, that allows you the opportunity to build tools into your business. I'd love to talk about that as we finish out the show.
Yeah. That's definitely because, listen, folks, if you ain't figured it out, I love sales. It's like a drug to me. Listen, if I didn't think it would be creepy, I'd get a Zig Ziglar tattoo because I think he's the best.
He's
Like
the best.
he really is. But look, folks, we're coming up on that new Scotland Spirits last call. So let's get that going here. This week, stop settling for weak pours and watered down flavor. New Scotland Spirits is proof that real whiskey still exists, locally made, bold as hell, and unapologetically smooth. From grain to glass, we put in the work so your pour hits different. No fluff, no fillers, just damn good whiskey. Head to newscotlandspirits.com and find your bottle. New Scotland Spirits for those who give a damn. Look, it actually says dram, DRAM. If you don't know, folks, that's such a great line. Those who give a dram, if you look it up. So to tie this all together, let's talk about that. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, I think that you want to make it actionable. If you believe that you can close more business if you had more referrals, as opposed to cold calling or advertising or things that take a lot of your time or a lot of your money. If you believe that in referrals. You should make it actionable. And all too often people say, how do I build my business? I'm online, I have a website, I do this and do that. And I'm like, yeah, well, your front end of your funnel isn't great, right? You want to improve your funnel so that 70% of the people who talk to you want to buy from you. And I'm sure you see it reflected in your close rate,
Oh
Sean,
God,
like
yes.
from when you started the first year to the second to now, like what did it look like for you as you got more referrals? Did you close more business?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, referrals, that warm handoff, even and I run into this all the time where we're a third of the way through the sales presentation and somebody will say to me, "Oh, do you know Jill Smith or Joe Smith?" Well, absolutely, I know them. We just worked with them recently. That's who sent me to talk to you. And people will hold on to it kind of like it's a secret, like, I don't want to tell you yet. Let me see how you work. And then once they super comfortable with you, they'll go, "Here's my secret." And at that point, for me, I'm pretty comfortable at that point to know, like, okay, short of me really saying something ignorant and going off track, this is a done deal. We just got to make sure we get them where they want to be.
Yep. So you get a better conversion rate. You get
100%.
a zero cost of acquisition, right? A client typically to acquire a new client costs 10 to 20% of the sale typically. Now it goes
At
to
least.
zero. So
Yep.
that money goes right to the bottom line. They're 4 times more likely to refer. They're more likely to spend more money with you. They're more likely to stay with you. They're more likely to come to your family barbecue. Advocates are really where it's at. And I just don't think people spend a lot of time or attention. If they get them, they get them. But they should be really intentional about getting them. So and the way to do it is to provide more value. I think all too often, like people think, well, I did this for you, so you should pay me for it. And I'm like, that's not how it works, man. You should do it because you're a good person and you're helping someone
Yes.
out. And if you
100%.
provide more value, trust that they'll return it in advocacy. And most times it works. So for some people, that's too touchy feely. Like I can't put my hands around it. I'm like, well, put your hands around this 67% to 70% close rate versus 3%. That's what you put your
Exactly.
head around.
You're bringing up such great points. I mean, just thinking about it for a second, going to some of the mentors that I've read, you know, we mentioned Zig, and folks, listen, go read Zig. At this point he would have been like 900 years old, but the dude was amazing. And he always said, if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want. And that's exactly what this is. Spending time caring about people, making sure they have what they want. Stop worrying about the bottom right. And for those who don't know what the bottom right is, every document that you've ever paid for something at the car dealership, every time someone's ever handed you a bill, if you realize the numbers that you have to pay up are on the bottom right of the page. So that's bottom right. If you ever hear somebody say that, stop worrying about bottom right and start worrying about top left, which is the person's name and who they are and what matters to them in life. I want to, I mean, that's my feel. What's your feel on that, Patrick?
100%, Sean. Zig Ziglar has a great quote that I write to everybody in a book. I send them the book. I send all the places we go when people buy business, and in there it says, "You don't have to be great to start, but you got to start to be great. You got to take some initiative, and the initiative is, if you can do nothing else, be kind." Open a door for someone, hold that door for the next person and the next person until until the last person walks through the door. You'd be amazed. I've met customers on a plane. I've held doors for people. I've met them in a park. I've met people, and I met a guy at a rugby game when some kid got knocked unconscious, and we were standing there going to help the guy, and he ended up buying a business from me. I mean, I've met people in all different ways just because we're in it together, right? And we're helping people out and we're serving each other or our community, and then good things happen. So I think every business owner can increase their advocates and their reach by serving everybody, whether they buy or not, and then asking to enter their orbit. And trust me, people have good hearts when you ask. They will try to help you.
And you just brought up a good point, and I want to throw this out to everyone. I was having recently a rough patch for myself, and it was like a business rough patch.
Mhm.
And I realized something, and I'm going to get your vibe on this, which is I was watch or listening to, like I like I said, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I was listening to audiobooks that I found interesting, but were negative topics. Like I listened to one about MK Ultra, which will blow your mind and make you want to burn the entire government to the ground.
Oh
And
no.
oh, it's like one of these things you find out what we did with the CIA in the 60s and 50s, and you're like, oh my God, we did this. And then I found myself and I listened to another one. It was called Chaos, and it was about um, Charles Manson and the CIA and his involvement, and you're like, and I realized I was like, God, I'm seeing these things, and I've got kind of the wrong attitude. And something said, and I listen to God, so God told me, and it's the way I see it,
You got a good book.
stop listening to that garbage. And yeah, he wrote a pretty good book. People like it.
People
It
like it.
was like, hey, stop listening to that and go find something else. And I picked up John Maxwell's High Road. And I was like, hey, this is a very positive leadership, learning how to be a good leader. It's recently written. It's not like a Napoleon Hill book that was written in the like early 19 teens, which is still relevant, but it's not one of those. What are your feelings on like, and I know this is kind of a little zenish, but like the things that you surround yourself with and how they affect your business and your perception?
I believe 100% that you have to be in state to perform well. I believe that listening to music that motivates you, listening to good voices that motivate you. So I don't like to turn my computer on in the morning before I get on a call. I like to listen to a good audiobook that's motivational, picking any of the folks you talked about and how they try to inspire you and uplift you before I work with somebody. Most people who have problems are stressed, and that's why they're calling me, right? That's what happens when someone has a problem. Like they want a solution. So when they get to that point, you've got to be the more positive person to lift them up so that they want to talk to you again. And if you're listening or you're filling your mind with the internet or the TV or all the nonsense that's being put at you, that's being driven to you through artificial intelligence, you're going to lose that battle. You're going to lose the emotional battle that you're going to need to influence your business. So get in state, be positive. You know, people laugh because when someone says, I say, "How you doing, Sean?" "I'm doing good." "How you doing, Patrick?" "Terrific." Right? Like let's go from the beginning to get it. Let's get the room higher level so that we can feel good and we can have a smile and we can go from there. So the music, the books, all that stuff, so important.
Is that
Um,
your word, terrific? I never paid
Terrific.
attention.
It used
So
to be,
that's your word?
it used to be fantastic, and then it was fabulous, and now it's terrific. So
Mine's stupendous.
stupendous. Oh,
I
maybe
l-
that's. Can I borrow that?
yeah, absolutely. You
All
know
right.
what I learned about stupendous? Listen, folks, as you listen to two old guys talk about words, uh, what I love about the word stupendous, never in my life, and I want you to try this and you come back to me, you text me. I've never said to somebody that I'm having that people say, "How you doing?" I'm like, "Stupendous as always." I've never had someone not smile after I say that. Never. And it instantaneously, any tension, any issue, any concerns that were gonna come between us as we're getting ready to have a conversation, they're gone because you smiled at me. You're happy. You feel good. You feel like, hey, this person I'm about to work with, they're a positive person. They're coming in with a positive attitude. They're not coming in going, well, the dog puked on the floor today. Like I'm not coming in as Eeyore.
Yeah.
Well,
There's 2,000 thoughts that come to our heads every day. 1,600 of them are negative. The person with the strongest filter, who focuses on the 400 that are left that are positive, always is the one you want to be with in the room. And
amen.
that's really hard to do all the time, right? Because a lot of times you don't want to come off without being empathetic to someone whose dog puked on their rug, but you also don't want to have a race to the bottom. "Oh, your dog puked on the rug, well, I puked on the rug." Well, all right, you know
Your
that race
dog
to the
puked on the rug.
bottom.
I did it this myself this morning.
Yeah,
I puked.
yeah, people have, they want the attention back, and they're like, "Oh, your dog," then whatever, and that's a race to the bottom. So, and oftentimes when I'm in conversations at parties and it's going that way, I ask someone what they would like. "Would you like some food or a drink?" And as I'm walking away. Like I
Yeah,
ask them if they want something because
that
I don't want to be in the race to the bottom. I'm moving on to the next conversation. The problem is I can't get my wife to come with me because she's so empathetic. She's just like, well, the two of us aren't going to go. I'm like, no, the two of us have to go.
he's like, but they need me right now. I need to help them out. No,
She's
no, we
not an
no.
Irish exit kind of girl. No.
We gotta go right now. This is a problem. This is who can one up each other. Ah, my foot kind of hurts. I've got a nail in my shoe right now. Um, I don't know when the last time I had a tetanus is. I've never had a tetanus shot. Son of a bitch. Like we all know that person. They are like
Absolutely.
walking Eeyores. Look, folks,
Absolutely.
again, as always, if you're curious what Patrick's got going on, you want to learn a little bit about him. And I got to tell you, so I checked your website out, Patrick. Um, you and we may have to go hat for hat at some point in time.
Yeah, man.
Bro, I've
What do I
got,
got? Oh, hold on.
listen,
Got
you're a
one right here
boss.
for you, buddy. I got my
Listen,
Saratoga hat on
and right,
for when I'm up there next to see you.
so upstairs, we were just in the Cape, and I picked up a beautiful, same style hat, uh, Kangol
Yeah,
belt, lime green. Brother, and
buddy.
I make that hat look good. Let
Yeah,
me just
man.
tell you, the hat don't make me. But see, you do the glasses. I had cataract surgery, so I can see now and shit. So
Oh, that's good. Yeah, my glasses are like reflecting that. I noticed that. I got to fix that. So
it's all good. Well, look, folks, again, go check out what Patrick's got going on. It's Patrick M. Donohue with an O and a DONOHUE.com. You can see what Patrick's got going on. You can get started with him. He's got his process, some testimonials, frequently asked questions, and he's got his links on Instagram and LinkedIn. I do apologize for everybody who's normally used to seeing this on LinkedIn when you see the audio. Has nothing to do with us. We would have posted it there, but something's going on with LinkedIn and StreamYard connecting to each other. They let us know that earlier. But if you're just joining us for the first time, make sure you're giving all this a like, share, follow. If you're finding me through Patrick or Patrick through me, take the time doing those things. Subscribe to the show so you know when we got different things going on. We always have different guests, different processes. We're going to focus a little bit more on the Albany area. For those of you who don't know Albany that well, normally a very quiet city, but sometimes it wants to be New York City. On 4th of July weekend, we had 10 a shooting that involved we had shootings and 10 victims on 4th of July, which is very
Mhm.
uncommon in the capital region, but we're seeing an uptick. So we're having Eric Thomas on. He is a violence prevention task force coordinator in the city of Albany. He was the previous supervisor of what was called 518 Snug, a gun violence prevention program here in the Albany area. He went to LaSalle School for Boys, which is an amazing school, but he's kept himself involved in the community. He's seen the challenges firsthand of high risk individuals, the impact of violence in communities, and we're going to talk about how these things affect our communities and how a passionate and optimistic view can work to change it. You know, a lot of people think these communities are what they are. Listen, folks, they aren't. From somebody who's watched a lot of these communities change and become better. When I moved to the capital region of New York, they used to tell you, don't live in Troy. It's called the Troilet. You know, instead of toilet, it was the Troilet. Don't live here. I'll tell you right now, you'd be hard pressed to find an empty home. And if you could afford it, you're probably moving from New York City where you sold your brownstone and trying to get a place up in Troy because it's the inner city up in this area place to be. So make sure you're joining us on that day. See what Eric's got to say. Now, Patrick, you've done this. This is your third time,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Now, as a three-peat, I don't need to explain what's coming up to you, but I'm going to do it anyway. And don't log off on me. And for those of you that are just joining us, please make sure you give them that like, share, and follow. A lot of people just popping up here at the end of the show, and you can watch this on repeat. The guest, Patrick, and don't log off. Like I said, the guest always gets the final word. So, what is our final word for tonight, Patrick?
Trust your advocates in their orbit.
Alrighty, folks, be sure to push your stool in. This has been a Second Front podcast presentation found on Apple, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found.